Okay, and we are recording. So, hello everybody, and welcome to this Zoom call with Tania Elfersy. How do you pronounce your surname?
Elfersy.
Elfersy, which is called, I believe, Menopause, beginning or ending, or yeah, something like that. And I can't take credit for that title. That title was given to me by Tracy Russell, and it resonated with me after we spoke together, and you talked about your story. Is this your background noise, Tania?
Well, it could. There's a alarm going on outside. So.
Okay, I'm going to mute you for a second. Okay, do you mind?
Yeah. Okay. No, mute me.
What was I saying? Forgotten. Oh, after we spoke, I thought, and I heard your story, and you had such a strong realization, such a strong insight. Menopause, is it beginning or ending of something, And it kind of, in your case, did end something and gave you a new beginning. So that's why the title really resonated with me. So what else do I want to say? It's why I invited you, I think. I listened to the podcast that you did with Nicola Bird, and I was really touched by the passion that you have to pass on this message about menopause, another stage of life, about what it gave to you. And there was something you said that really got me, because I don't really know, I can't really say I know you. I met you once, I spoke to you once, I heard you. Something touched me, and usually I reach out to people to have a conversation with them because on some level I'm touched, on some level I feel a connection. And I don't usually look up biographies, I don't introduce the person because I really don't know how to do it, I'm not into that. So what I do is I reach out, have a conversation, and then bring your understanding to my group and to give others, perhaps, or to I don't know, to share your understanding, and so that people can see more. And also because I really enjoy this community, I really enjoy the space. I don't know if that makes any sense, but without further ado, I'll pass it on to you, and you can share your story. And I'm going to mute me.
Okay. So, should I introduce myself? Today I'm an author, educator, mentor, and specializing in helping women through midlife change, through perimenopause and menopause. And when I was 43, I started suffering from a lot of different symptoms that I know now are perimenopause symptoms, but at the time I didn't know what was going on really. It just started, first of all, I was getting sick a lot, which was really unusual for me. I have 3 kids, and ever since I became mum, I wasn't touched by any of their viruses at all that they would bring home from nursery school or something like that. And all of a sudden, everything that they brought home, I got it. So that I thought was strange. And my hair started falling out a little bit, and I thought that was also strange. And so I started treating these symptoms with acupuncture. And the acupuncture could bring relief and strengthen my immune system and stop the hair loss. But then I started suffering from a lot of migraines and really a lot of mood swings, which was unusual for me. And I started getting eczema on my hands, and I started getting spots on my skin, more on my body than my face, and a collection of other symptoms as well. And I didn't know what was going on, and so I kept on with the acupuncture, and then I started sort of herbs, and then I started some healing, and everything I tried could bring some kind of symptom relief, but then some other symptom would pop up, and I didn't really know what was going on. And then about a year and a half into that, I listened to a webinar by someone called Dr. Christian Northrop, that maybe people who hear afterwards will know, who's a sort of a leading light in women's health. And she mentioned that a lot of women in their 40s experience PMS on steroids. And something really touched me in what she said, because I was like, PMS on steroids, that really sounds like me, because it did feel like I was in PMS a lot of the time in my month. And that was the first time that I'd heard about perimenopause. And I understood then that perimenopause was what was once known as just menopause. Once upon a time, even just 20 years ago, menopause was understood to be a sort of decade of change or longer at midlife, and was understood to start in our 40s. But for some reason that we could go into, but perhaps it's not so interesting, but the world, or really medicine, has divided up menopause into several sections. So now we have perimenopause, we have menopause, which has just become this moment in time 1 year after your last period, and we have postmenopause. And these are just terms, but what's happened is like me, I entered my 40s. I didn't think I needed to think about menopause. I thought menopause was something that was a 50-something woman's experience. And there I was at 43, suffering from all these symptoms, and I didn't have a framework to understand these symptoms whatsoever. And so I found that fascinating, that there was something that was going on to women in their 40s, including me, and I didn't know about it because I thought I had a good grounding in women's health. And so I asked all my 40-something friends, and none of them had heard about it either. And some of them were experiencing symptoms without knowing that they were perimenopause symptoms. And so I started researching perimenopause and menopause more and more, and trying to understand, well, what creates these symptoms, and why is there this knowledge gap, and how could I cure my symptoms? And quite soon into my research, I realized that actually, despite what you read, wherever you go into the internet, wherever books you pick up to read about perimenopause and menopause, it's actually not about our hormones. The story is not a story of hormones. So the way I understand it now is that the hormones that are changing during perimenopause or menopause create a sensitive time in a woman's life. But that's not necessarily a bad thing. We've come to understand that all these symptoms that come along, they're really bad. And I know what that feels like, because when you're suffering, it feels really bad. But actually, what's happening into your body is that your hormones are lining up in a certain way to create a sensitive time. And we experience sensitive times in our lives and other times in our life cycle. We experience them when we're in our teenage years, and if we've been pregnant and postpartum, these are also sensitive times. And there's a reason why those times are sensitive. And the easiest example to compare to is when we're pregnant. We can't live a stressful life, work really long hours, eat really bad without symptoms occurring, because the body is trying to protect the woman and the baby. And so something is happening. There has to be a reason why the body is lining up the hormones in such a way and creating a sensitive time. And there is a reason. And the reason is because our body wants us to learn something at midlife that we haven't perhaps learned before. And in my case, my body had a particular message for me, which it was determined to get through to me. And so it didn't really matter if I cured a particular symptom, because it would just come out through another symptom, because my body still wanted to communicate something with me. And for me, it was about the stress that I was creating in my life from a story that I'd created about my life. And in my particular instance, it was about a book that I had written, co-authored and published. And it was a book about motherhood, and it won awards and great reviews. And I self-published it, and I couldn't sell the book. And everything else in my life until that time, I told myself I could set goals and achieve them. And here was something that I'd invested money into, and it was sitting around in boxes, and I couldn't sell it. And it was my first project that I'd taken on since I'd become a mum. I'd been a mum for full-time mum for 6 years, and this was my going back to work project. And financially, it was what one would call a failure, and I couldn't quite get over it. And it was kind of, created this story about how it should have been, and how many books I should have sold, and what that meant about my worth, and what that meant about me trying to combine motherhood with business, and whole big story that I created. And these were actually creating this stress that I was creating myself, were creating my symptoms. And one day I realized that if I didn't have this story or these issues about what I should have done, or should have been, or should have succeeded at, then perhaps I wouldn't have, I thought, but then I wouldn't have my PMS. I thought that would solve sort of the emotional side of things. And it was an insight that was so simple and so deep that it was just like, well, if I'm creating stress around this idea of failure and the kind of woman that I was supposed to be, and the kind of mother that I was supposed to be, just through my thoughts about this, in particular about the story of the kind of woman that I am, then if I didn't take those thoughts seriously, then I wouldn't have the stress. And it was true. Because from that moment, I saw that my whole story was made up, and thus I didn't need to take it seriously, and all my symptoms disappeared. And it wasn't only the emotional symptoms of the 2 weeks of PMS that I was suffering from every month. It was all my symptoms that cleared up from that one insight, and remained away. Now, I'm not going to say they've never come back since then, because there have been times when I've been taking stress very seriously, and I'm still in a sensitive time. I'll be 50 next year, and my hormones are still in flux. I still have my period, which, by the way, most of the symptoms that we experience are before we even see changes in our periods. And now I'm seeing changes in the period, but still going on regularly. And even though my hormones are still fluctuating, clearly, and I'm clearly in a sensitive time, because I've understood what Diane is also pointing to, and this group is pointing to, my symptoms have left me, because I understood what my body wanted to tell me. So that's my, I don't, maybe you want to ask questions, Diane, particularly. I mean, that's the summary of my story and what happened to me. And since it happened to me, I've just become quite passionate about sharing how simple it is that we can, how it is simple that we can cure our symptoms. And it's not as complicated as we think.
Okay, so basically what you're saying is this, because I identify with what you said in the story and creating our story. The thing is, I really get sucked in, and I really believe, Sunday, I really believe that all my worth was dependent on my outside circumstances. And I really believed it, and I became really weepy. When we spoke last time, you you said more or less the same things. What struck me mostly was what you're saying now, is that the minute you realized that you are hanging on to the belief of your story, when you are hanging on to the made up idea of how we think, of how you think you should be, or how I think I should be. And in my case, it's I'm not married, I don't have kids, my business is not yet flourishing, a whole host of rubbish that I've invented. Because when I look back and see what I've done in the past year, I've done quite a bit. But we fail to look at what we haven't done. We choose to focus rather I fail to look at what I have done, and I choose to focus on what isn't happening. And but what you're saying is, magic wand, let go of your story. Let go of who you think you should be. Step into who you are already. Make peace with that, and your symptoms will drop away. Is that what I'm hearing you saying?
Yeah, I'm saying that what I'm saying is even simpler than that. I'm just saying that our stories are made up. That's it. Because I had a lot of evidence to convince myself about why I was the kind of woman who set goals and achieved them. Now, that you could look at that and you say, well, that's a positive story to hold on to, right? So why not hold on to that? Because sometimes, you know, when we take positive stories too seriously, they can also start, I'm not going to say harm us, but we take them seriously. And it wasn't true either. It wasn't that everything that I set, you know, as a goal in life I had achieved. That's not true. But that happened to be the story that I compiled for myself from the evidence that I chose to put into that story. So when that story started to fall apart, the positive story that I held on to started to fall apart. Then that was devastating, because I thought that the story was true. Right? So it doesn't matter if you've got a positive story that you're holding on to, or you've got a negative story of wherever you find yourself with relationships, or what you've done in your life, or if you have no worth because your mother never loved you, or because you left your career when you became a mum and you should have continued with your career, or because you continued with your career and you should have left it and been a stay-at-home mum. You know, whatever story the woman brings into midlife, we need to recognize that it's made up. And it doesn't have any value, you know, it doesn't represent our value, our worth, and our core. And when we hold on to those stories and take them seriously, and we think that we need to act in a certain way because of the story, rather than showing up in life from what I'm inspired to do next, then that's stressful. So it's not about what I need to replace or what I need to recognize or what I need to see. I don't need to see anything and take it seriously. I don't need to say, oh, well, I have achieved that, but I haven't achieved that. I hope that's clear. It's kind of different.
Actually, you know what, Tania, what I'm hearing here is it struck me what you said now. I hope that that's clear. what I'm hearing is who I am is perfectly okay, whether or not I've achieved anything. And the flip side of that, if that is a flip side, even if I have achieved anything, it really doesn't matter. Because that's not where our greatness lies. If we, for want of a better word, that is not where our true essence lies. My true essence is in my being. And I think this is what I'm hearing. And if I'm able to, because this is the tricky part. For you, you got a simple insight. It seemed simple, it was very deep. And you let go of all the stories that you had created, that stories that we are induced to believe, even though it's still outside them, that we are conditioned to believe because of how success is being interpreted today, how money is being seen today, because of that our self-worth is based on what we do rather than who we are. And for the life of me, I get sucked in. I get sucked into my story. Today I'm not. Today I'm clear. Today I really appreciate Diane and who she is, and it's okay. Everything's fine. It's hunky dory, you know. And there is no how to, and I don't want this to be a prescription, but a description, because there is the danger, again, for want of a better word, or the temptation to ask, how do you do that? I think you just saw it. You just saw it on a very deep level. So
Yeah, I saw it, and when I saw it, it was totally okay. Everything that had been in the past. This is the, before I really understood what I understood about thought, I was very much in, trying to help myself through a lot of self-development and reading, and that made it almost even worse, because I could say, well, if I write my gratitude journal or whatever, or if I say mantras, or if I do whatever, this 10-step plan to make yourself whatever, and I'm still feeling bad, then it's sort of like, it's even worse, because then you have all this thinking about, oh my goodness, I've just put all that effort into it and I still feel bad, and so I'm really crap, and it's never ending. And so this is just really, it's like a little step aside, but it's just so life changing, because even when I look back and say all those years that I was suffering with my symptoms, it's okay. And even if I sort of fall down again and start taking my thinking about something very seriously, and then all of a sudden, I'll have a migraine or something, that's also okay, because I'm human and my body's in a sensitive time, and it's fine. It's just fine. That's just what's happening in that moment. And soon I'll bounce back. So that's what's such a relief, really. It's such a relief. It's such a relief that we can look at our stories and say, well, that's all made up. And it's totally okay that I believed it. Doesn't matter, because I can also not believe it.
something just occurred to me, something that you said in our private conversation, and then I want to ask Sue what she's thinking. If that's okay with you, feel free to say no. But you remember in our conversation last time, you talked about puberty being another phase of life, being a phase of life, and that our bodies were lining up the hormones to get into another stage of life, and we get antsy at that age. And you mentioned this. you touched upon this in our private conversation when you said to me, before you got into your perimenopause, I gave you infinite slack. I let you get stressed. I let you work 40 hours, 60 hours. I let blah, 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 blah. But now I'm giving you a nudge. Can you talk about that?
Yes, I can. So the way I see it, it's very interesting to have that comparison with adolescence, because when we look at teenage children, if you're a parent of teenage children looking at your child and they're having this, huge fit over something incredibly minor, and you're like, what the hell is going on? And it's hard to see that there could be any wisdom behind that, right? But for a teenager, they actually have to push themselves out and find out what they love rather than what their parents have told them that they love all the time. And they have to actually create, if you like, their own individuated self, or, they have to step out into their own world that they're going to create. And they have to learn how to do that. And so their bodies are actually, with this play of the hormones, are actually pushing them out. And sometimes, they're in such a sensitive period that they're going to just scream and shout and, run out the room, slam the door, whatever they do. But we have to understand that there's a wisdom behind that. And it's really difficult if you're a parent of teenage children, but there is. It's their body saying to them, try and find what you love, because that's what's important when you become an adult. Like, that's what you really need to know, what lights you up. And what's interesting about teenagers also is that in the sensitive time, they're also exhausted because their hormones are changing. As pregnant women, postpartum women are exhausted. And as women are going through perimenopause, exhausted. Now, when you see a teenager being, falling asleep on the couch or on the rug or whatever, no one pays any attention. They're like, oh, you're teenagers, they're just sleeping all the time. If a pregnant woman is exhausted, like, okay, go, lie down. Obviously, you need your sleep. But when a woman at midlife is exhausted because there's something going on in her body that's creating a change and ending the part of her life cycle where she's been in this reproductive cycle month after month after month, then no one recognizes that as, oh, she also needs rest because she's in change. And there are doctors who actually say, well, if you're exhausted, that's the symptom. It's not. It's something that women experience at midlife, but it's just like when you're a teenager, it's just your body saying, I just need a bit more rest because I'm going through this change. And it's a completely different way of looking at it. Now, in terms of what you're saying about our bodies allowing us to be in the stressed work, or, being in crappy relationships or something like that, people sometimes get away with it, not always, before they reach midlife. But the way I understand it is when you reach midlife, your body is already looking at decades that are going to come, when your body will be in a more sensitive time. It doesn't mean that you're going to be open for disease, but there is a more sensitive period. And your body's saying, okay, that kind of stressful living, that kind of living where you take all your thoughts really seriously, that kind of living where you ignore that little voice that's telling you that job isn't suitable for you, or that relationship isn't suitable for you, or you need to be maybe trying something else. Like, that little voice, it doesn't want to be ignored anymore. And so the only way your body can communicate with you is through symptoms. The only way it can push you in a different direction is through symptoms. Now, we have come to understand symptoms as malfunctioning, a sign of the body's malfunctioning. And there are all these theories about, oh, women weren't supposed to live this long, which is not true, that our hormones are getting it wrong at midlife, that I don't believe is true. Like, why would our hormones that have done a pretty great job, since we were born, even before we were born, lining up at the right place and behaving in the right way to get us through every stage of life. From the time that we were a baby, there was no intervention needed to try and, make us into a toddler. and make us into a girl, make us into a teenager, make us into a woman. That, you know, the body was just wise enough to do it by itself. So why all of a sudden at midlife is the body sort of malfunctioning and getting it wrong? To me, it makes no sense. And what's happening is the body is using symptoms to communicate with us, to get us to wake up. And we think, oh, you know, I've got a chemical imbalance that's creating X or Y, or I've got a susceptibility to migraines, or my skin is just really sensitive, or you know, I'm just having a really, really bad day every day, or whatever it is. But actually, it's the body saying, wake up, and saying, you know, those thoughts that you're taking really seriously right now about why you're such a failure, or why you're not worthy, or why you should have done X and Y, or how crappy it is that you're in this situation, or like, you need to take those thoughts lightly. And so it's going to send a bad feeling or a headache or another kind of symptom. And then if we get the bad feeling, we're like, oh, I'm having, you know, this is a bad feeling. But actually the body's sending this symptom to say those thoughts make you feel bad. It's a completely different way of understanding symptoms.
So if I'm hearing you right, what you're saying are my symptoms are there, my menopause is there, the stage in my life is there, wake up, listen to me. They're not symptoms, they're just your thoughts being reproduced as symptoms, if I'm hearing that correctly.
The way I like to look at it is the symptom is your body's reaction to thoughts. So, you know, we talk about you're feeling, you're thinking.
Yeah.
Right. And when we talk about that, I think it makes the body sound like it's passive. And I don't believe the body is passive when we feel our thinking. I think the body reacts to our thinking in a way that can guide us. So, but we don't understand it that way. We're like, oh, now I'm having a really bad day. When actually the body is saying those thoughts are going to make you feel really bad right now.
Yeah.
And if we can make that switch of the way that we understand symptoms and say, oh, they're not a result of malfunctioning. They're not a result of my hormones or my chemical imbalance or whatever. They're actually a result of my brilliant body sending me a message about what that thinking is doing in my life. And that it's a game changer. Because then symptoms become blessings. And when I say that to women, I know they're like, how can you possibly say that? You know, symptoms become blessings, because you don't know. Because when you get to 51, then you'll know. And I've heard, I don't know if I've heard it all, but I've heard a lot of what women, how angry they get when I say symptoms are a blessing. When I say it's not their hormones. Because I'm saying the answer's within. It's not anything outside. And it's not what's going wrong in your body. It's what's absolutely perfect in your body that's allowing it to express itself in this way, creating messages that can guide you to a happy and healthier life. And once you understand that, like I said, it's game changer, symptom curer, and you've got the message of midlife, which is what the body wanted you to get. So it's all good.
Right there, I got your passion. I got your love for. Oh, it's wonderful to see, Tania. It's really wonderful. Now I want to ask Sue what she's been hearing. If she wants to share anything, go ahead.
Hi. Right. Yeah, I get that, you know, the symptoms are thought created. However, yeah, I'm not going to say but, I'm going to say however. What if it's a physical symptom that you get? Like, I get stress hives and they itch like crazy. I end up having to take antihistamines, and I'm awake all night scratching. And to me, that's a physical symptom rather than, you know, the sensitivity and the tension and, you know, all that I understand is my own thinking. But a actual physical thing, does that work the same way?
Yeah, I'm going to ask you though, just out of interest, did you used to have these when you were a teenager? Or
Yes.
if you, okay. So, me too, by the way. I remember those. So, your body, I think everyone's body has different windows, let's say, that through which it can communicate with you. And so some people have a really sensitive gut, for example, and when they get stressed, not necessarily in perimenopause or regular, you know, menopause, the gut is the first thing that goes. For some people, it's a sensitivity to headaches, maybe something to do with their blood pressure or something like that. For some people, it could be a tendency to head to depression or have panic attacks or something like that. And so everyone can be born with a slight sensitivity, and the body understands that, as the way I see it, as a window. And so for your body, if it wants to communicate with you, it's going to go through the windows that are easier to open. Okay? So, for example, hot flushes and night sweats. It's a physical symptom. Okay? And it seems that what happens, no one can explain. If you ask doctors why do women have hot flushes and night sweats, they'll say to you, oh, it's, you know, about the change in hormones, etc. But why does the change in hormones create the hot flush or night sweat? They can't actually tell you. But what's interesting is that teenagers in adolescence, they also have they also start getting hot. They don't necessarily have hot flushes or whatever, but all of a sudden, children that used to have to wear layers in, you know, autumn or spring, whatever, all of a sudden it's like they're hot. They're just too hot. They're hot. I see it with my kids as well. All of a sudden, you know, they get to sort of 11 years old. That's it. They're just hot. They want to wear shorts when you'll be like, why are you wearing shorts? It's cold outside. And they're like, because I'm hot. Okay, their body temperature is also rising. When women are pregnant and postpartum, their body temperature rises. And I certainly remember after the birth of each child, like being sweaty, like sweating so much, like breastfeeding my children, sweating. But we don't pay that much attention to it. And we know that pregnant women get hot, and it's apparent that teenagers are hotter than when they were children. And something happens to us at midlife that in that hormonal change, time of hormonal change, we also get hot. And then when we're hot, that also becomes an open window for the body to communicate with us, right? It becomes something that's available. And so the body uses the raised body temperature, which doesn't mean that you're going to always be sweating, but it means that it seems that times of hormonal change, as I've explained, our temperature rises. It's just what the body needs to do. And so at midlife, the body uses that to communicate with us. And it will send us night sweats, and it will send us hot flushes. And for you, your sensitive skin that also would flare up when you're a teenager is flaring up now because your body's communicating with you. But it's the same. The body's using whatever it can. And if something's sensitive in your body, it makes it an easier route to communicate with you.
So what's it trying to communicate to me? That, you know, is it reminding me that I'm getting older?
No, it's not reminding you that you're getting older, but it's reminding you that you are destined for a life of joy. Like, your body wants you to be joyful in life. Why? Because that's the healthiest way that we can be, and your body is designed for you to live a long, happy, healthy life. Okay, and so your body wants you to take whatever you're taking seriously much lighter. Your body wants you to experience life with a lightness of being, not by taking everything seriously, not by entering into stress, not by thinking that whatever story you carry, and I don't know your particular case, but from all the women I've spoken to in my work, we all have these stories that we think are pretty solid by the time we reach midlife. And your body's saying to you, that story that you take really seriously is actually made up. And if you take it lighter, it's going to be healthier for you. Like if you don't take your thoughts about whatever it is so seriously, and you recognize that thinking just comes and goes, and you recognize that you have this innate health within you, and your body wants to bring you back to that innate health. Once we recognize that, the symptoms start to disappear, because the body's like, oh, you got it. You got it. Now you're set to live a long, healthy, and happy life.
So basically what you're saying is, I have the most intelligent, our bodies are that intelligent. They are really highly tuned, intelligent creations that will nudge us constantly to almost, it's like an internal GPS saying, listen, you're going in this direction, your thinking is, you're feeling the thinking, you're feeling your stories. So I'm going to give you a nudge. This is your symptom. Your body is telling you here. Let me just swing you back. Let me just remind you through this symptom that you're not living the life of joy you're meant to be living. Basically, what you're saying is we have perfect, intelligent instruments that's really a clinical word, but they're perfect. That's what I'm hearing.
Absolutely. The body is this brilliant collection of millennium of wisdom. Do you see what I mean? It's just like, it's impossible to imagine the amount of activities that are going on in our body right now, just so that we can sit here and be on this webinar. You know, if you think about the amount of activity that's going on in your body, just so that you can see, you can hear, you can speak, you can listen to me, string these words together and understand them, the blood flow, all of these things are going on without us intervening and having to do anything. And we think at midlife that our hormones are getting it wrong. No, they are not getting it wrong. The body is wise, and it will always be wise, and it will always try and help you live a happier, healthier life, because that is its design, and that is its interest, and that is the evolutionary interest of the human species. But we think that our bodies malfunction, get it wrong, need to be changed, need to be knocked into a different kind of hormonal balance, when actually our bodies are just brilliant.
I have nothing to add.
I don't know if Sue wanted to add something after.
Yeah.
What?
So, okay, let me get this right in my little head. the body's throwing out symptoms to give me a message, to say whatever, I'm not quite sure what, and then the release comes when, without being graphical, the blood flows. And then when that starts reducing, then that you get more symptoms. Does that make sense?
No, I haven't quite understood when you would get more symptoms.
Right, well, okay, like say my symptoms, I get stress hives and cold night sweats prior to bleeding. Then when my period started to reduce, I then started getting other symptoms. Like I started getting like a depression around that time. I started getting very tearful. So kind of the perimenopause is adding more symptoms on as it goes on.
Okay. Did you want to add something?
No.
No, okay. So perimenopause, like I've been trying to explain, is a sensitive time. Okay, and for women, for different women, it will look differently. It will look differently before they reach that moment in time, which is now defined as menopause. It will look differently post-menopause for different women. There are women that keep on having night sweats into their 60s, 10 years or more after they reach menopause. And the sensitivity among different women will look different. Okay, but it is a sensitivity, and it is the sensitivity that is common among all of us during a period of hormonal change. Okay, how our body will choose to communicate with us will look different for different women, and so the symptoms that different women experience will look different. Okay, if, however, the way that I see it, if you have not yet learned the lesson that your body wants you to learn from the original symptoms it sent you, let's say, it will just keep on sending you symptoms because it has a chance. The hormones are lined up during perimenopause, menopause in a way that, because you're sensitive, it can communicate with you easier. It becomes easy to do that. Right? It's taking advantage of this sensitive time to communicate with you. Just as when women are pregnant, it's within the body's interest that the woman looks after herself and looks after the baby. If she doesn't, and she's stressed out at work and not getting enough sleep and etc., the body starts sending symptoms. The woman goes to the doctor, the pregnant woman goes to the doctor doesn't say, let me see how I can make you less sensitive during pregnancy. Let me see how I can change the hormones. Like, the doctor would just never say that. Okay? The doctor will say, are you working too hard at work? Are you too stressed out? Are you not getting enough sleep? Go and relax, take sick leave, go home, put your feet up, relax. Okay? And the woman will do that, and lo and behold, her symptoms will start going away. So if we can think that we're working really hard to make ourselves less stressed, etc., if we still have symptoms, the body is still saying, hello, you need to understand something else. And I was lucky in that I came across the Through principles, and quite soon afterwards I had this huge insight that changed everything. But not everyone's journey is different, and everyone's understanding will come differently. So it's fine that you're still experiencing symptoms. I mean, it's not pleasant, right? I know that it's not pleasant. I've been through all those symptoms, but it's fine, because it means your body is trying to communicate with you, trying to express its love, and trying to say, hello, let me help you, let me guide you, let me be your barometer to what else you can do to reach a happy and healthy life, because that's what your body wants for you. So I know that it's hard to say my symptoms, the rash, the depression, the anxiety, whatever it is that you're suffering from, is a blessing. But as soon as you see it like that, then you can understand, oh, that's just my body telling me, giving me a sign that my thinking is off. then I need to lighten up. Then I need to reconnect with my innate joy. And that's what makes it all a blessing.
Unfortunately, I haven't been listening because I just realized that I think people misunderstood, or I made myself misunderstood. There's someone who said, I'll be attending the webinar. And I'd like to announce that we're online. So I haven't been listening. I want to do that right now, or maybe you could, or well, it's too late now, so never mind. I just lost my concentration. Sorry.
It's fine. It's fine. I was explaining to Sue about what
maybe
the symptoms
you could
mean.
speak to Tracy who joined us.
Yeah.
Just now.
Hi, Tracy.
And she coined the title for this. She's the Tracy I was talking about.
Okay. So I don't know, Tracy. I don't know where you are in life, or what question you might have for me. So I'm happy to answer your questions. Sorry that you missed the first part.
Oh, cool. Well, I don't have a specific question. I was just interested to hear your wisdom. How's that for pressure?
That's fine. That's fine. Where are you suffering from symptoms, or?
Not currently, I don't think, but then maybe I am. So I'm not suffering from symptoms, but I might be experiencing some, I guess. I don't sleep particularly well. I'm 48. Last year, or maybe about 18 months ago, I went through a phase of having a few hot flashes, and also my mood was all over the place. There was various other things going on, but I was convinced it was kind of perimenopausal symptoms. And my periods are a bit all over the place, but I'm not so much. And I'm tired. I'd forgotten that I'm tired, so obviously I'm not tired today. But often I'm more tired than I think I should be.
Right. Well, I talked about earlier that exhaustion at this stage, apparently it's totally natural because at every other stage in our life where we've had hormonal changes, we've been exhausted too. And the thing is, we come to midlife where we've got more pressures than when we were a teenager and exhausted and just sleeping all over the place whenever we wanted, or when we were pregnant or postpartum and exhausted. And at this stage in life, we've got more going on, often a lot more responsibilities, etc. And we have all this change going on inside of us, and so it's the body just needs more rest at this time, and often it's harder for us to get rest. And then often women don't sleep well, and there are a few reasons for that I could talk about as well. Firstly, often women are awoken through a night sweat, and they often don't realize that that's a perimenopause symptom. Night sweats often come before the hot flushes, but sometimes at the same time. And so that keeps women awake. But also what's really interesting about sleep is that I wrote a blog post about this. You could also look that up. But up to a few centuries ago, it was totally understood that humans slept in 2 chunks of time in the night.
Yeah.
And they would wake up, they would sort of go to sleep shortly after sunset because there wouldn't be lighting in their home, there wouldn't be lighting in the streets, there wouldn't be anywhere to go. And they would go to sleep, wake up, be awake for a few hours, pray, have sex, go and visit their neighbors, do whatever, and then go back to sleep again for another 4 hours and sort of wake up at sunrise. And many women that experience this waking in the night get incredibly frustrated, but actually it seems that it's just like our body going back to its default setting.
Yeah.
And so it's not really surprising when we're in a sensitive time at midlife that our bodies go back to this default setting of 2 chunks of sleep.
Yeah.
But what makes it worse is when we wake up and we're like, oh my God, I'm so exhausted and I can't sleep. And then also lots of women start having panic attacks at night, because then they're like so stressed about they can't sleep and everything else that they're stressed about. And it makes it even worse. But if we accept that, oh, well, maybe this is my body's rhythm right now when it's in this sensitive time at perimenopause and menopause. And it doesn't mean that it will go on forever. But it just means that I'm going back to some kind of default setting. That was, the research has shown that that's just the way that humans used to sleep. But with the industrialization of modern nations, like humans don't sleep like that anymore.
Yeah, it's actually entirely natural.
Yeah.
And I agree. We get really hung up on sleep, and actually a lot of the kind of what perhaps we think is the impact of not sleeping, it's not. It's the impact of our thinking about not sleeping.
Right. Exactly. Yeah, we have so much thinking about how exhausted I am, and yet we also totally don't appreciate that when we have times of hormonal change, the body needs more sleep. Because it's working quite hard. If you imagine like this wheel that's been turning around and it's sort of coming to a halt and something new is starting, then we just need to accept that, yeah, maybe we do need to take a nap in the afternoon if we can, or certainly at the weekends, or go to bed earlier, or whatever we can do without feeling like, whatever we think about exhaustion and the need for sleep. Yeah. I see there's someone else online. I don't know if they have any particular questions.
Yeah. Hello, Lainey. Am I on mute? No, I'm not.
No, we can hear you.
Should I mute me?
There isn't much background noise. I don't really mind.
Yeah, no, Lainey's on mute, isn't she?
Yeah. Hey, Lainey. How are you? Do you have any questions, or do you want to add something? Or?
Not just now. I just want to listen. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. We can.
I say this is the first time I've done this. I'm being all shy.
Okay, that's fine. You just want to listen. So, unfortunately, somehow these different time zones being misunderstanding, because we started practically an hour ago.
Okay.
So we're nearing the end. Not quite. This half an hour ago, but we've exhausted pretty much of what there was to be said. But I'm wondering if Tania would humor us again, and would you do that for us, Tania?
Yeah, I'm just would be. Oh, here you go. Hello, Lainey. I would really like to to go in a direction where perhaps the other women here would like me to go in, because I can speak about this for hours, obviously, because this is what I do. But if I could be helpful in sort of a particular way of understanding.
Okay, I have a question. It has everything to do with perimenopause, with menopause. But when I was 16, I was diagnosed with the kissing disease, glandular fever, which then became quite a bad form of IBS, which in turn had messed up my whole body, my period, I was very irregular. I had really sensitive breasts, really painful 2 weeks before, and then now it seems to be my IBS it seems that the quieter my thinking gets, or the less attention I give to my story, the less symptoms I have. But somewhere in my deranged mind or a maniac mind, I'm convinced that my IBS has made my perimenopause symptoms worse. But I'm thinking you're going to say the same thing, but I'm curious to hear what you think.
Yeah. Like I said, if we can understand that our brilliant hormones during midlife line up in a way to make us sensitive for an excellent reason, then we can understand perimenopause, menopause very differently. And your IBS points to nothing more than sensitivity in a certain area of your body. And like I said, when your hormones are lining up to create a sensitive period in your life, a learning period in your life, whatever window of communication your body can use, it will use it. So for you, you think the IBS has made your perimenopause worse, but I'm telling you that it's just what's flaring up for you when your body is sensitive. So for me, I had, for example, really bad eczema only when I was pregnant, and in particular when I was pregnant working in a really stressful corporate job. And I had it as a symptom at the beginning of perimenopause. Now, I have sensitive skin, so when my body wants to get my attention, it plays up on my skin to get my attention, and also through giving me exceptionally tender breasts or moodiness, 2 weeks of PMS, or allowing my hair to fall out, or whatever it was doing to play up. It started off very mildly by just bringing down my immune system a little bit and making me sick all the time with different viruses. And I just thought something was wrong. I didn't look at that as there's something that my body wants to tell me. But when I didn't learn from that stage, then it just went on and gave me another symptom. And when I learned to cure that symptom with whatever treatment, but I still didn't learn the message that my body wanted me to learn in perimenopause, it sent out another symptom. So your IBS may have come before you recognized other symptoms of perimenopause, but I would say that you were probably already in perimenopause. Your IBS flared up, and if you hadn't learned the lesson that it wanted you to learn from that, it just sent something else, and then something else, and then something else. And in the end, you will learn the lesson, and then your body will be like, hooray, now I don't need to work so hard. Because you're reconnected to your innate joy.
So what I'm hearing is my IBS as a 16-year-old, my body was already trying to tell me something.
Yeah. I mean, the reason why I asked Sue about the hives, if she had that when she was a teenager, it's because a lot of symptoms that women experience during perimenopause, they've only experienced them during teenage years, or only when they were pregnant or postpartum. So everybody's body is a little bit different, and so they'll have different symptoms depending on where their sensitivities lie, or where the body chooses to communicate with them, which route. But your body was trying to tell you something when you were 16, and your body's trying to tell you something now. And we know what it's trying to tell you.
Yeah, it's loud and clear, and I'm really glad that that I touched upon this, because then it becomes, the issue doesn't remain around perimenopause and menopause, But it can also apply to people who are listening, who are 16-year-olds, 18-year-olds, and the sickness that appears and the symptoms that appear, and what is your body trying to tell you? So this is across the board. So it doesn't just necessarily refer to menopause or perimenopause.
Right. But it just the body gets more determined at these times of change.
Yeah.
That's all, but for good reason.
And I think it's a blessing, actually. Sorry, I interrupted you. I think it's really a blessing.
Absolutely.
Instead of looking at it as a curse, it's really a blessing. It's our body telling us, wake the fuck up. Excuse my French or English, whatever.
It is a blessing. And like I said before, women hate me for saying that often. They're like, because you don't understand. I'm like, I do understand. But because it is hard. It is really, really hard when you're suffering from symptoms. But once you understand that that's just your symptom is an expression of your body's brilliance and nothing else. It's not expression of your body's malfunction. It's the opposite. I saw Tracy had a question.
I love what you just said. Symptoms are an expression of your body's brilliance. My shoulders went down a bit. My question was just, no, I don't know what it's trying to tell me. What is it trying to tell me? Because Diane said, well, it's really obvious. So it was obvious to you, but it wasn't to me. So, but I'm assuming different people's bodies are telling different people different things anyway, and mine's just saying less.
Well, yeah, I think we spoke at the beginning. We spoke about this idea of how we each come with a story, often at midlife, about the kind of person we're supposed to be, or what we should have achieved, or what we haven't achieved, or what we should have done or could have done, or where we should be living, or the amount of money we should have been making, and we take all those thoughts very, very seriously. And we take an idea of the woman that we're supposed to be very seriously. Mm-hmm. And although for each woman it may be a different story, and she may have a different history, and she may have different circumstances, whatever, what our bodies are trying to tell us is lighten up. It's as simple as that. It's lighten up. Don't take your thinking so seriously. You're destined to live a life of joy, and that's what your body wants. That your body is designed to allow you and to guide you to a happy, joyful life. And because your body loves you, that's what it wants you to know. And when we take our thoughts seriously about whatever it is that we think is real, and whatever story we think, well, my story, Tania's story, well, that maybe that wasn't real, but my story, my problems, they're real. Then that is just a misunderstanding, because all our problems are created in thought. And all the thinking that we have around a certain thought, story, whatever that makes us think that it's real.
Ain't that the truth?
So every woman has a different story that she's created, thinks she should take it seriously, thinks it's real.
Yeah, we've been talking a lot about me and my colleague Mandy Spray, who you may not know, but she often talks about the perfect Mandy who's here, and of course the perfect Mandy isn't real. Neither's the one that none of the Mandys are real, none of the Tracys are real, but we have this perfect person who we're aspiring to be, and we're already perfect. If only we knew that. But something you said actually did kind of like something else. Sorry, gone all chatty. I've just realised, because I've been suffering or experiencing allergies, like really full on, like I haven't done since I was about 16 actually, or maybe younger, and that's just really lit
Like my body is much more sensitive, and I've even been talking about the allergies. Like my body's really sensitive; it's really hypervigilant. It's like, you know, it gets really neurotic about things it needs to not worry about. And so that's really, just joined a dot or lit something up for me. You said about, you know, our bodies are sensitive at this point in our lives because there's a lot of change happening.
Right, but what's interesting, I can tell from my experience, for example, I know that I have quite sensitive skin. When I was a teenager, I had particularly sensitive skin. When I was pregnant, I had sensitive skin. And all of a sudden, when I was having my perimenopause symptoms, I was having this terrible eczema. Now, what would make it worse on my hands was like soaps that have chemicals in them. And so if I was to use a bathroom in a restaurant or even like, different people's houses, their soaps, it would just like create this like rash and peeling on my skin. Now, my body's the same body with its sensitivities, but because I now, since I had this huge, like in terms of life-changing insight about that, I just didn't have to take my story seriously. My hands that aren't affected by the soaps that I meet in my life. And it's not because all the soaps have changed at, my friends' houses or, in restaurants. No, they haven't. But my hands have just my body doesn't need to use that sensitivity in my hands to communicate with me. Yeah.
And you are now symptom-free, right?
Yeah, I'm generally symptom-free. I can't say that since my insight, I've never had any symptoms come back. But what's interesting is, I'll add this bit to the story that I told, because I told the story just for those who've joined about how I, had this story about myself that I was taking really seriously, and was, creating all this thinking about that I wasn't worthy or not enough or a failure or whatever. And when I understood that was all made up, and I just didn't need to take those thoughts that were coming into my head seriously. I was completely symptom-free. Like the symptoms just disappeared. They just disappeared within days. It was just unbelievable. I thought the PMS stuff would disappear, but all of them disappeared. And I was symptom-free completely for about 9 months. And then we had this dispute at my kids' school, and we sort of led this fight to get this teacher removed and all this stuff going on. And so we kept on having these meetings with the local municipality and the education department, and it was my husband and I, and there were all these parents that were originally with us, and then everyone dropped out, and it was just us left alone fighting the fight. And it was such I made it into this hugely stressful time. I was going to all these meetings and writing all these emails, and I couldn't leave my anger in the meetings. I was just bringing it home, and then I was having all these thoughts about all these other parents and why aren't they with us, etc., etc. And all my symptoms started coming back. And then I had thinking about, oh, I'm a fake. Oh, it was just my hormones that maybe, reacted differently for 9 months. And now they're reacting differently. And I was kind of devastated. And then I was speaking to a friend who's also involved in the 3P community, and I suddenly realized, oh, I can still have these meetings at my kids' school and write all these emails, and I can still have joy in my life. And it was just this simple realization of, oh, yeah, life can still be joyful. I can just leave all of that, and I don't have to take it all so heavily and seriously and everything. And I can just lighten up, and all my symptoms disappeared again. And so it sounds like, well, how could that happen? But it was just this really deep understanding of, oh, yeah, I am supposed to live with joy, so I might as well just do that. And the symptoms disappeared. And so then I was like, oh yeah, I do get how symptoms are created and how they're cured, because I really see it. So and there've been times when I've got all in my head about whatever it is going on, and then I'll get something, and I'll just say, oh yeah, thank you, I get it, I'm taking it really seriously, I'll lighten up and the symptom goes away. So, yeah. Sounds a bit too easy, right? Did anyone else have a question? I don't know, Lainey, did you have a question after you'd listened to that?
Hi, can you hear me? Hello. It's more of a realisation, actually, through the conversation of what I've heard. It's like we don't trust our bodies, we don't trust Mother Nature. And as we get older, like we've lost that trust, and we put so much pressure on ourselves for perfection, and don't let things take the path that they're supposed to. And it just leads to quite a lot of, I don't even want to say suffering, but you're putting a lot of pressure on yourself and you're creating a situation that doesn't need to be. I feel that because I feel as if the past 5 years, it's been like with the hormones, 2 weeks out of the month, I would say, the past 5 years, it's like going back to being a teenager with the moodiness, with the sensitivity, with the intolerance. The intolerance is the big one, and I'm ashamed to say that. And I feel that I'm so hypersensitive to anything that goes on within my body. And I beat myself up about it because it's like, give yourself a break. And I try and give myself a break, thinking, let Mother Nature do what it's supposed to, but it kind of feels as if Mother Nature's punishing me for not looking after my body so well over the years. That's a hard one. Try to trust Mother Nature.
Yeah. So it's so interesting what you said. You feel like Mother Nature's punishing you, and I hear this a lot from women that I speak with, and that there's this sense of that my body's betrayed me, or I'm so disappointed in my body, and I kind of expected better, and why me, and etc. And to put it in a context, we have thousands of years of history and theories about women's bodies really against us, right? That's a kind of outside-in thing to say, but on a general cultural level, things that writers used to write about in Roman times, about the woman's body being inferior and dirty and prone to malfunctioning much more than the superior male body, continued through the centuries until quite modern day writing. So today you won't find it in those terms so much, and you will find the theories in sort of like more gentler language. But the whole idea that runs through society about perimenopause and menopause is that the woman's body is prone to malfunction, and that her hormones are getting it wrong, and that it's downhill from now on. And these are these sort of historical and cultural ideas about the woman's body that have just carried on through to modern day. And so today, like I said, it will sound different perhaps in the way modern medicine talks about it, but the ideas are the same. And in what you brought up is so true, that we've come to sort of accept that we can't trust our body. And the reason that we've come to accept that as normal is because everyone around us almost thinks that it is normal. Even you could go to a doctor and that would be their idea of the female body, that it's more prone to malfunction, that her hormones are getting it wrong, she needs some kind of medication to get it right, rather than you going to your doctor and your doctor saying to you, you know what, the first thing and perhaps the only thing you need to remember about your body is that it's brilliant. And it's always trying to get you back into your innate health by communicating with you. And that's all it's doing. It's trying to point you in a direction that you can connect to your innate health, that you can connect to your joy. It's not malfunctioning. It's being brilliant. And doctors just, they're not going to say that to women. Most of them, unfortunately, are not going to say that to women. And so we look around us, we see that as women age, as our hair goes grey, as we look, older, we're thought of, yes, less useful, less attractive, less able to contribute to society in every way that society thinks we should contribute. And so we have all that going on. Then we have the medical world sort of just accepting that we need some kind of chemical intervention at midlife because that's just the way it is. And yeah, we can get really upset with what's going on. But as soon as we can understand, oh, you know what, I have it, my body has it all. It understands where it wants to go. It understands where I'm destined to, the way I'm destined to live my life, which is of joy and happiness, and that's all it wants. Then it's so amazing to then say, oh, I can totally trust my body, because my body hasn't ever stopped loving me. It hasn't since before I was born. Right? It was always getting it right. And I just, thought that it was getting it wrong because everyone around me has been telling me that it's been getting it wrong. And that's the dominant culture and the dominant narrative on midlife women's health. And that's what makes me so happy that I'm doing the work that I'm doing. I don't know, do you want to say? We need to unmute you, Lainey, to hear you.
It's hard to know what to say, actually. I just feel like grinning from ear to ear. I get what you're saying, absolutely, and it's so nice to hear it from your point of view, and it's the truth, because you're so used to, in this society, in this world, hearing it so differently, and it's like such a negative thing. You know deep down that it's not a negative thing, it's a good thing, it's taking its course, and you've just got to stop taking things so seriously. I need to stop taking things so seriously and just roll with it. Just go with it. Things will be as they'll be. Definitely.
I'd like to add something to what you said, Lainey, if I may. And I have to mute you because I'm very sensitive to background. Sorry, I apologize. If we do, am I not muted? If we do happen to take things seriously, to also be gentle with taking that stuff seriously. I think that's really important, and not beat ourselves up because we do take things seriously, because I'm bound to fall into the trap. I mean, last Sunday I had a really shitty day. I sobbed for 2 or 3 hours. It's fine. And to me, the sobbing is just, I think I created such a thick armor around me that the tears are just like softening that armor, and I'm getting to the space I'm supposed to be, but so I don't mind. I just let them flow.
Yeah, the tears are just another expression of your body's brilliance doing what it needs to do to release whatever it needs to release. And to go back to your point, it's, yeah, we are all humans. Yeah, I like to say we're all wiser women having human experience, and so we can, go into those times when we take our thoughts seriously, when we feel bad, when we can't understand, when we think everything's malfunctioning, and it's okay. It's totally okay. And here's a little story to share that I've recently realized, is that a few years ago, I discovered a certain kind of green tea called, I don't even know how to say it. I think it's hojica, like green tea. I don't know if you know. It's like this nutty green tea. It tastes quite different from anything else that I tasted. And it was when I discovered it in North America. And when I came back home from a trip, I couldn't find it at home. So I had this stock that I'd kept, and I would just, once a week have a tea bag, and it was just like, oh, this tea is so amazing. It's so amazing, so amazing. And then I discovered it in a local store. And so now I have this tea all the time. And the truth is, it's amazing, but I can't taste it anymore because it's become my everyday tea. So I have to break, and not have that tea every day so that I can taste this beautiful nutty tea that's really difficult to taste when you have it every single day. So I'm not saying, oh yeah, we should all, once a week have really bad days, just so that we remember, what the good days are like. But when we go in and out of, getting caught up with our thinking or feeling slightly heavier, and then we don't need to do anything about it, because our bodies know naturally to return to that innate good health, good feeling that's just ours. And then when we're back there, then we can feel it even better, and it becomes even more beautiful. And so it's almost like, why, again, you can take this story as you want. Why Eve ate the apple, or whatever the fruit was, the fruit from the Garden of Eden, which gave her wisdom. Because if we only lived in the Garden of Eden, it might not be so interesting. And that is, as it turns out, not what the human experience is supposed to be. And so we will always be coming in and out, and that's just fine. That's really fine.
I think this is a brilliant place to end. It's 12 o'clock, 11 o'clock, 1 o'clock for you in Israel. Unless anyone wants to add anything or ask another question, Tania's very generous with her time. I don't mind.
I'm happy to answer if someone's got another question. Or
we're all fine. So thank you.
Pleasure.
Thank you. It's been really nice connecting with you. It's been nice connecting with all of you. And I really have to do something about this time and the misunderstanding. But anyway, we managed to all get here. So you can all unmute yourselves, and we can all say goodbye. And thanks, Tania. It was really, really great.
Pleasure.
Thank you, Tania.
I'm going to be uploading this to YouTube. Okay.
Thank you.
Bye.
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 Bye. Bye.